Just when you thought spring had finally arrived in the UK, the skies had other plans. Temperatures are crashing, Arctic air is sweeping in from the north, and wintry showers are back on the forecast. This is not a drill. This is the UK weather doing exactly what it does best, pulling the rug from under you right when you least expect it. Let's talk about what is actually happening right now. A powerful northwesterly wind has begun dragging cold air down from the Arctic region, pushing temperatures across the country to around 4 degrees below the seasonal average. That might not sound dramatic on paper, but when you factor in wind chill, that gap between what the thermometer reads and what your body actually feels becomes very significant. Forecasters have confirmed that a 7-degree air temperature can feel as low as 2 degrees once wind is factored in. So if you were planning to step outside thinking it was a mild spring day, think again. The Met Office has been clear about what is driving this sudden change. A deep area of low pressure near Iceland swept across the UK, and in doing so, it dragged cold Arctic air in right behind it. The jet stream, carrying wind speeds above 200 miles per hour across the Atlantic, helped accelerate this shift. One week you were enjoying sunshine and temperatures pushing close to 20 degrees in parts of Wales, and now the same country is looking at frost, ice patches, and snow warnings. That is the reality of UK weather in April. It does not apologize, and it does not give you much warning. Scotland is bearing the brunt of this cold spell. The northern half of Scotland is facing the possibility of significant snowfall, with higher ground potentially seeing 15 to 20 centimeters of snow in some areas. Mountain roads, including parts of the A93, are already being flagged for disruption, and Traffic Scotland has urged drivers to use extreme caution. The Highlands and northern regions are no strangers to late-season snow, but the speed of this temperature reversal has caught many off guard. The Cairngorms and the higher Pennines are both looking at conditions that belong firmly in the middle of winter rather than spring. Northern England is on high alert as well. The Pennines, the Yorkshire Dales, the North York Moors, and the Lake District are all areas where wintry showers are expected to hit hardest. Overnight temperatures in Yorkshire and Humber are forecast to drop below -1 degree Celsius, while Northern Ireland is looking at -2 degrees. And parts of Dumfries, Galloway, Lothian, and the Borders are facing the same. These are not trivial numbers. Sub-zero temperatures overnight mean icy roads, icy pavements, and a very real risk of accidents for anyone not prepared for the conditions. Let's break down exactly what wintry showers mean for different parts of the UK. For areas in the far north, snow is not just a possibility, it is the expectation. For the Pennines and higher ground across northern England, sleet and snow showers are likely, with accumulations possible on elevated routes. For Wales, particularly the higher ground, there is also a risk of wintry precipitation mixing in with rainfall. Even parts of East England and coastal areas may see sleet if wind directions shift slightly toward the northeast. The only parts of the country largely escaping the worst of it are the Midlands and the southeast, which may see heavy clouds but avoid the snow entirely. Now here is something worth understanding. This kind of cold snap in April is not as rare as it might feel. Meteorologists at the Met Office have pointed out that statistically, snow or sleet is actually more likely to fall in March than in December. April sits in that turbulent middle ground where the atmosphere is still fighting between winter and spring. Arctic air masses and Atlantic fronts push against each other constantly during this period, and the result is exactly what we are seeing now. Sharp temperature swings, unpredictable showers, frosty nights following warm afternoons, and conditions that change from one day to the next without much notice. The Met Office Deputy Chief Forecaster put it plainly when they said that Wednesday could be quite a shock to the system after a spell of mild and brighter weather. A series of weather fronts are crossing the country, bringing periods of rain, strong winds, and much colder air. This is not a one-day event. This cold air is expected to linger, and further weather warnings are likely to follow as forecasters get a clearer picture of how long the Arctic influence will remain anchored over the country. What does this mean for the everyday person living in the UK right now? It means your morning commute carries more risk than it did a week ago. Ice can form rapidly on untreated roads and footpaths when temperatures drop overnight, and it can persist well into the morning hours, even when the sun is out. It means if you have elderly relatives or vulnerable people nearby, checking in on them matters, because cold snaps like this put real pressure on heating systems and health. The UK Health Security Agency has previously issued amber cold health alerts during similar Arctic air events, and the risk of cold-related illness spikes sharply when temperatures fall this fast. Travel disruption is another major concern. Snow accumulations on higher ground can make mountain roads impassable. High winds affect bridges and exposed routes. Train delays and cancellations become common when ice forms on tracks and overhead lines. Airlines also face challenges when ground frost affects runways. If you have travel plans in the coming days, especially if you are heading north or into elevated areas, checking the Met Office warning map before you leave is not optional. It could save you hours of frustration, or more importantly, prevent an accident on an icy road. There's also the question of what happens to the cold snap as we move deeper into the coming week. The forecast suggests that a frontal system is approaching from the west, carrying milder Atlantic air with it. This means the cold spell, while sharp and disruptive, is not expected to become a prolonged freeze. The clash between the incoming mild air and the entrenched Arctic air could actually produce its own hazards, particularly where warm rain falls onto frozen ground, creating a brief but dangerous period of widespread ice. Forecasters are watching this transition closely, and the period where the two air masses meet is often the most unpredictable part of the whole event. What makes this particular cold return interesting from a meteorological standpoint is the mechanism behind it. The jet stream did not just passively allow cold air to drift southward, it actively helped push it in. When the jet stream races at extreme speeds across the Atlantic, it can deepen areas of low pressure and create the kind of atmospheric setup that funnels Arctic air directly down into the UK. This is the same basic pattern that drives many of the most dramatic cold snaps in UK weather history. The speed at which it arrived this time, coming directly off the back of a warm period, is what makes it feel particularly jarring. For anyone watching this unfold from outside the UK, this is a useful reminder of why British weather has such a global reputation for being unpredictable. The geography of the British Isles places them directly in the path of competing air masses from multiple directions. Arctic air from the north, Atlantic systems from the west, and at times continental air from the east all have a regular influence on what the UK experiences. No 2 weeks are ever guaranteed to feel the same, and a gap of just a few days can produce conditions that feel like entirely different seasons. The broader climate context is also worth mentioning here. While individual cold snaps like this one are entirely within the normal range of UK weather variability, meteorologists pay close attention to how frequently these late-season cold events occur compared to historical patterns. Spring warming trends and shifting jet stream behavior are both active areas of research, and events like this Arctic return contribute to the long-term picture scientists are building about how the UK's seasonal weather is evolving over time. For now, the immediate priority is preparation. Check the latest Met Office warnings for your area. If you are in Scotland, Northern England, Northern Ireland, or elevated parts of Wales, treat this as a genuine winter event, not a minor inconvenience. Grit your paths, check your car, delay non-essential journeys if conditions are bad in your area, and keep an eye on forecast updates because this situation is still developing. The Arctic air is here, it is cold, and it is not done yet. Spring in the UK is often described as a season of false promises. You get one warm weekend, the parks fill up, the outdoor furniture comes out, and people start talking about barbecues. Then, within days, the temperature falls back sharply and everyone is back in their winter coats, wondering what just happened. This cycle is not a malfunction of the seasons. It is the defining character of British spring, and the current Arctic return is one of its most textbook examples in recent years. The contrast between the warmth that came before and the cold that has now arrived makes the shift feel especially dramatic. The science of why April produces such wild swings comes down to the position of the sun and the behavior of pressure systems at this time of year. By April, the sun is climbing higher in the sky and heating the land more effectively during the day. But that solar heating does not neutralize the threat from cold air masses to the north. What it does do is increase atmospheric instability. Warm air near the surface combined with cold air overhead creates the conditions for heavy and intense showers. This is why April showers have such a distinct character compared to the steady, gray rain of winter. They arrive quickly, they can be heavy, and even bring hail or thunder, and they clear just as fast. The wintry showers associated with the current Arctic incursion are a particularly sharp version of this process. As cold Arctic air moves over the relatively warmer waters surrounding the UK, those waters help to destabilize the air above them. Convection kicks in, showers develop rapidly, and because the air is cold enough, precipitation falls as snow, sleet, or hail rather than plain rain. This mechanism produces the kind of localized, intense shower bands that can drop significant snow over one hill while leaving the valley just below completely dry. It is part of why forecasting during these Arctic air events is genuinely difficult, and why Met Office warnings cover such broad geographic areas. Local communities across Scotland and Northern England are already preparing for disruption. Schools in some Highland areas have protocols in place for exactly these conditions. Emergency services increase readiness when temperatures drop sharply, and mountain rescue teams are on higher alert because cold, fast-arriving weather catches hikers and outdoor visitors off guard. The risk is not limited to roads and travel. People out in exposed areas face real danger when temperatures drop unexpectedly and wind chill takes the effective temperature significantly below freezing. Despite all of this, the forecast beyond the immediate cold snap does suggest that milder conditions will return. High pressure is expected to become more established from the coming weekend, bringing drier and brighter weather for many parts of the country. The Arctic influence is likely to ease as Atlantic air gradually reasserts itself. But, as forecasters have been careful to note, the exact timing of that transition matters, and the brief collision between the incoming mild air and the departing cold air will need to be watched carefully for icing risk. Until that transition is confirmed and stable, this cold spell demands full attention. One thing that often gets lost in weather coverage is the human dimension of these cold events. Behind the temperature numbers and the warning maps are real people adjusting their lives. Farmers managing livestock during late cold snaps face additional pressure, particularly if animals have already been moved to spring pastures. Energy demand spikes sharply when temperatures fall this fast, putting strain on heating systems and energy suppliers. Delivery services slow down, outdoor workers face genuinely dangerous conditions, and the NHS sees an uptick in cold-related admissions. These are not abstract consequences. They happen every time a weather event like this arrives. For viewers watching from warmer countries, the UK's relationship with its own weather can seem almost theatrical. But to anyone who has driven on an icy road, cleared frost off their car at 8 in the morning in late April, or watched snow settle on hedgerows that were in bloom 2 days earlier, there is nothing dramatic about it. It is simply the rhythm of life in a country where no season fully surrenders to the next. The Arctic is never far away, the Atlantic is always pushing in from the west, and in between, the UK weathers it all, quite literally. Stay informed, stay prepared, and keep checking the latest forecasts as this cold spell continues to develop across the country. The pattern we are seeing right now is also a reminder of how quickly public perception of weather can shift. A few days of sunshine and people start declaring winter over and done with. Social media is filled with posts about spring walks and outdoor dining. Then a single cold front arrives, and the conversation flips entirely. This sensitivity to sudden change is actually a reasonable response to UK conditions because the swings really are that fast. What is less helpful is treating each cold snap as either a catastrophe or a total non-event. The current Arctic return sits firmly in the middle. It is significant enough to disrupt travel, dangerous enough to cause real harm to vulnerable people, and entirely normal enough that experienced meteorologists are not surprised in the slightest. Understanding UK weather means accepting that spring and winter will continue to trade blows well into May in some years. It means watching the forecast regularly rather than assuming yesterday's weather tells you anything about tomorrow. And it means knowing that when Arctic air moves south, even a country that thinks it has seen everything will sometimes find itself back in full winter mode before it ever gets fully out of it. That is exactly where the UK finds itself right now, and if history is any guide, it will not be the last time this year that the forecast catches people off guard.